Did you know Maine gets a lot of snow? I'm Will. Welcome to Will's Wild World. Today, I'm at Rangeley State Park. More specifically, the South Bog Conservation Area. This place is so cool. It's actually my first time. I'm looking for something in particular. Something I was actually looking for in episode 0 of Will's Wild World. Here, I think I'm in a little bit of a better environment for him. Any guesses? If you guess snowshoe hare, you're correct. Snowshoe hare are native to the northern United States and pretty much all throughout Canada. They look a lot like rabbits, and they love this snowy winter environment due to a nifty evolutionary trick of theirs, turning completely white in the winter. So, can anybody hear that bird? Anyway, what do you think we'll see out here? Rangeley State Park is located in the mid-northeast region of Maine, and it's a part of Maine's robust state park system. It began in 1960 when the state purchased the land from the town of Rangeley and the local plantation, Rangeley Plantation. Let's take a further step back. In 1796, the land that would eventually become Rangeley State Park was purchased by one James Rangeley from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, along with 30,000 acres of land at the headwaters of the Androscoggin River. Oh, and for those of you that don't know, Maine was once a part of Massachusetts. It didn't become its own state until 1820, following the Missouri Compromise. Interestingly enough, Mr. Rangeley never even saw his land. It would remain unoccupied by European settlers for another 20 years at least, untouched, home to only the native Abenaki people. Eventually, in the 1820s, Mr. Rangeley's son would inherit the land and move to Maine to occupy it with dreams of starting up a township based around agriculture, lumber, and mining. This dream would eventually come true, with Rangeley Jr. growing the community into a group of nearly 40 families in the subsequent decades. As the community grew, the lake started to become well known for their splendid fishing opportunities. Men started coming from as far away as New York and Rhode Island to explore the lake's region, and eventually would start to bring their families along for a summer getaway in vacation land. This would lead to the first camps being constructed along the lakes, encouraging more people to take extended recreational trips to the Rangeley Lake region. These recreational origins very well likely led to the state's desire to acquire the land that would become Rangeley Lake State Park. In 1960, the Bureau of Parks and Lands made 3 acquisitions totaling 718 acres. Over half of the acreage of those acquisitions were actually donations from Oxford County and international paper companies. Today, the land is managed by the Maine Department of Agriculture, Conservation, and Forestry. The park, which can be accessed after the payment of a small fee, features picnic areas, a playground, swimming beaches, and a playfield, along with copious hiking trails, campsites, and wildlife viewing opportunities. In the wintertime, the Rangeley Lakes region is a hotspot, cold spot for snowmobiling and snowshoeing. While the South Bog Conservation Area is a part of Rangeley Lake's Heritage Trust's land, the trail systems do overlap, which will lead me into the state park. Speaking of... I've only just begun my quest for the snowshoe hare, but I think there's already icicles starting to form in my mustache. It's a little cold. It's warmer than I thought it would be. It's a whopping -1 degrees Fahrenheit. The weather said it was supposed to be -5, so honestly, count my blessings. But it's not too bad. It's I'm nice and warm, layered all the way up. I've got on at least 4 layers, nice big coat, a hat, gloves, etc. I'm prepared for a whole day. I'm on a quest. I am on a quest. So, I went to a tracking certification workshop weekend not too long ago, a couple of months ago, and we learned all about tracking. And I've been trying to use those skills ever since. So today, on my quest for the snowshoe hare, I'll be looking for snowshoe hare tracks as a main starting point for my expedition. So like I said, I've just begun, haven't seen any yet, but that doesn't mean they aren't out there. Snowshoe hare tracks are really interesting. They kind of look like lobsters. So I'll show you what I mean if we find any. Let's take a look. Let's talk about my gear. It's always important to be prepared when you're going on any sort of hike or nature walk that's a little more intense than your average day in the park. So today, obviously I've got my protective clothing, hat, lots of warm socks, layers of clothes. I've also got some high visibility gear, not as much as I'd like, but still something's better than nothing. Lots of water, warm beverage, snacks, and lunch. So I think I'm set for a nice afternoon in this winter wonderland. Wonderland? You get the picture. My nose is already clogged up from the cold. Oh my gosh, guys. Okay, we found the first snowshoe hare tracks. I'm so excited. And they're heading in a direction I think I can follow. Okay, check it out. There they are. See the kind of lobster shape with the claws in front? Why do you think that is? I'll give you a second to think about it. Snowshoe hares are really quick on their feet. So when they hop or run, their back feet actually come in front of their front feet. So they've got these huge back feet, their namesake. They kind of look like snowshoes. And they bring them all the way in front of their feet and almost like gallop, like an exaggerated gallop. See if you can picture it. All right, so there's the back one, and then the front. So those are the back feet, and then that's the dragging front feet. hot on the trail of the snowshoe hare, but it looks like there's something else following it too. There are a number of carnivores in Maine that stay active during winter. Not all are lucky enough to hibernate like bears. Bobcats and Canada lynx, for one. Unfortunate news. I followed the tracks, and I wound up seeing some tracks that looked pretty familiar. Boot prints, my size, went in a circle. Well, there's always going to be the next bunny, or hare. For such a harsh, barren landscape, this place feels so alive. I hear birds all around and see a ton of little tracks all over the place. I think those are the poofiest chickadees I've ever seen. It was hard to pull me away from those friendly chickadees, but alas, there are hares to find. Speaking of chickadees though, they were really poofy. They do that to stay warm during these freezing cold winters. They're also constantly foraging because at night, to stay warm when it drops way below zero, which I guess now it's below zero, they stay warm by shivering and burning off all of the excess calories that they eat during the day. So the more the merrier. Really, it could be a case of life and death for those little birds. Did you know there's another species of chickadee in Maine? I've never seen it. It's called the boreal chickadee. Turns out, not too long ago, some folks, birders, wanted to change the official state bird of Maine from chickadee, aka the black-capped chickadee, to the boreal chickadee, to give Maine more of an identity, because several other states, like our semi-neighboring Massachusetts, also has the state bird of chickadee. Literally an icicle forming on my mustache. Guys, I saw something go into there. It seemed really small and brown. Honestly, the perfect size for a baby snowshoe hare, but I don't think they'd still be that tiny this time of year if they're born in the spring. But speaking of them being born, major difference between hares and rabbits. Hares are born precocial. Listeners of the Will's Birdbrain podcast would know what that means. Basically, they're born like ready to go. They're able to mostly fend for themselves while nursing on their mother for, I don't know, like a couple of times a day, but they're born with eyes open and covered in fur. Now compare that to baby rabbits when they're born. Bunnies are born completely naked, eyes closed, and honestly helpless. these are some really good tracks. And it looks like some pea. Great sign. A whole lot of evidence of pine cone munching. Who loves pine cones? Red squirrels. And this little tiny hole under a tree has to be access to their den. Whew, I'm getting hungry. It's tough hiking in the snow. Speaking of food, snowshoe hares mostly eat vegetables and plant matter. During the winter like this, they're likely to eat bark even. Straight off the trees or young saplings, they'll munch on those. But we'll see. I have got a sandwich, which sounds a lot better than bark. Here's your story of the day. So, when I was in high school in Seattle, well, Seattle adjacent, close enough to Seattle. For the purposes of this story, we'll call it Seattle. There was a great snowstorm, which was fairly unheard of. I mean, the weather in Seattle's pretty mild. Like, we'd get snow every now and then, but not like schools closed snow. So during that snowstorm, it was so bad they closed school for like 2 weeks or something like that. It was paradise for a high schooler, because not only did we not have to go to school, we got to just do whatever we wanted for those 2 weeks. What we didn't know at the time was, of course, those days would be made up in the summer, so oof. But anyway, so the great Snowmageddon snowstorm. I always think of it when I'm out in cold snow like this, because we'd walk around, my friends and I, we'd like be walking down the middle of the road because they like did not plow out there, or really have like any snow infrastructure. It was like everybody scrambling. But we'd walk in like the middle of the roads and be like, it's a zombie apocalypse. What happened to everybody? Just like, the familiar streets seem so foreign when it's deserted and there's lots of snow and such. But yeah, really fond memories. I remember going to one of our buddies' houses. Me and my little squad lived within like a mile radius of each other. We like walked over to one of their houses, and his mom made this like big pot of stew. So we like stayed in there. They had like a wood burning stove and just hung out, played some video games, had yummy stew, went back out, played in the snow, did some sledding and stuff, lots of snowball fights. But it was really fun. Felt like a special moment in my childhood. So yeah, there's your story of the day. Well, the sun has started its descent. Looks like just a little bit at the very beginning. I've been out here for hours tracking snowshoe hares. Man, I probably found 100 pairs of tracks, so many. But unfortunately, no snowshoe hare. Can't lie, pretty disappointed. I got here a bit later than I wanted to. It snowed down where I live last night pretty heavily, so I spent a pretty long time like clearing off my car and stuff and driving slow and careful all the way up here, about 2.5 hours or so. But even still, just a little later than I expected. They are, like I mentioned in the previous episode, crepuscular creatures, so dawn and dusk are their most active times during the day. They're likely hunkered down somewhere, trying to hide from predators, or meat, apparently. Anyway, I'm a birder at heart, and as birders know, we're very familiar with disappointment. So, you don't win them all, but still overall, like, amazing time. I love to be out here, even if I'm freezing my butt off and my mustache is frozen. So much fun. So, yeah, on my way back, no snowshoe hare, but I hope we all learned something about them today. So, got some pictures up, maybe even some video. Yeah, awesome creatures. I'd love to see one. Heading up here, I was so excited just to go somewhere new. I call Maine my own backyard, and I'd never been up to Rangeley before. I've heard about it, and apparently there's a joke that everyone knows somebody with a camp in Rangeley. But man, some of those views, you have to go up this big hill, big hill, just when you're like cresting the kind of ridge to see down to the lake, and man, it was stunning, so beautiful. But yeah, I used to do this a lot, get out and explore new places. When I lived in Washington, it was always so exciting because the wildlife there is just like off the chain, like always something crazy and new and exciting wildlife wise. But here, I think I need to start kind of refocusing my exploration, because it's the landscapes. It truly is the scenery up here. Yeah, from the water, the coast, and then these rolling hills and mountains and lakes. The scenery is just something to behold. So yeah, I'm just really glad I've ventured out here, woke up early, and I'd like to come back in the summer. Maybe go swimming in the lake or something. See how the ecosystem changes and what kind of creatures might come out then. One of the reasons I wanted to come up to Rangeley for this episode of Will's Wild World is because Maine really comes alive during the spring. For those long, long winter months, southern Maine can be kind of depressing, for lack of a better term. Not a lot of green, not a lot of critters unless you know how to find them. So I wanted to come up somewhere where there's less human interference and more rugged climate, like this cold, cold weather, to hopefully find some creatures that are right at home during the winter months. So I'm talking snowshoe hare, obviously, moose, deer, and all sorts of other cool animals you probably aren't going to see in southern Maine. So I thought this would be a great introduction to the winter months of Maine.